Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Robert. Welcome to another fantastic Cook Along Live. Give me just a second. I forgot to set the sync cam up, so I'm just making sure that that is all squared away, and it looks to be. Awesome, awesome. So, tonight we are going to be putting together an awesome vegetarian chili. Now, this is very bean heavy. It's got black beans, pinto beans, a lot of spices, pretty simple to put together, a lot of flavor, and a lot to share as well. So, this is going to be a pretty easy to put together. We're going to be gearing up towards our Thanksgiving special, which is coming up on Thursday. So bear with me for that. I'm going to get some ingredients up on the interwebs for y'all. And I'm just trying to find something to open my beer. Where did my opener go? I have no idea. Very sad if I can't open a beer and drink this. Opener, where did you go? All right. Well, I don't see my opener anywhere. All right, let's put this aside for now, and we'll just get started with our chili. Chili's vegetarian. It's very, very tasty. We're going to start with a red onion. Get that skinned if you need to. If you haven't skinned it yet, go ahead and cut it in half. Just take the front end or the end that's got the little hair dressing up on it. We're going to cut that off, give you a nice flat surface to work with. We're going to go ahead and set that down on the cutting board, face down. And then from here, we can just cut straight down the middle, like so. That'll give us two flat surfaces to work with. Now, we don't need to worry too much about this being very finely chopped, but we are going to chop it down. So go ahead and do a couple of horizontal cuts. You put the heel of your hand up against the top of the onion, and then just cut kind of parallel to your hand. You won't cut yourself. And just keep an eye on that. Make sure that you're staying away from the knife, and then we're just going to cut a couple of vertical slices down through the onion. And then we're going to come over and do it across our vertical cuts. You don't need to make this super fine. I mean, these onions are going to be cooking in here for a little bit of time, so they will definitely get soft, cooked down. There we are. I think I know where my opener is. So once we get these started, I'm going to run over and grab it. I believe it's sitting in front of my computer because that's the last place I had a beer. Whew. Spicy onion. It's making me cry. And we're going to go ahead and cut up both halves of our onion. So again, heel on top of the onion like so, and you can cut parallel to your hand, and that'll get you some nice slices through the onion. Don't go all the way through, you just want to go about 3/4 of the way. And then we'll do some vertical cuts like so. You'll notice I haven't turned my pan on, and there's actually a reason for that. I'm going to start this off in a cold pan because I don't want to burn them, and I want to keep them in there and kind of simmer them for a while and have them kind of caramelize. So starting one off in a cold pan makes that a little bit easier. You'll notice that I am crying because this onion is very spicy. Go ahead and get everything cut up. If you get any pieces like this, just cut right through them. We're pretty easy to find in this pile of chopped up onions. From here, we'll cut one down on this side as well. And then the benefit of using the back of your knuckle as kind of a guide, you don't need to look at the onion. So if you're crying, you can still keep chopping and not injure yourself. Oh my goodness. Whew. Yikes. Waterworks are on. It all started when I was a young child. I'm kidding. All right, so we're going to get our onion in here. Oof. Now we're going to put in a little bit of olive oil, get it mixed around, and then we will turn on our heat. Use two hands to kind of scoop it all up off the cutting board, and then the last bits here, we will just light up with our knife. Yikes. Glad that's over. Cool, cool. Grab our olive oil over here. Get a little bit in here. Put in a pretty good amount of oil, maybe a tablespoon or two. that over there, and we will go ahead and get this on, I'm gonna say like a medium-high heat. You don't want this super hot. You don't want to blacken the onions, but you do want to get them kind of up to temperature and cooking pretty quick. And grab our wooden spoon. Just give them a nice little stir around in here. Now what we're going to be doing is, like I said, caramelizing them almost like you would for a French onion soup. We're not going to go quite as dark. Those, I mean, you can keep those going for hours. We're not going to be here for that long. But we do want to get some color on them because it's going to add depth of flavor to the actual chili, which is what we're definitely going for. If you just saute them and get them kind of clear, yeah, they'll taste great, but you're not going to get that complexity that you will when you caramelize them. So we're going to go ahead and put in a little bit of salt. For seasoning, and it helps the onions kind of release some of the moisture that's in them and help them caramelize down a little bit quicker. Now I'm hearing mine start to sizzle, which is great. You definitely want to hear that. You don't want it to start getting too loud. We are going to actually probably turn this down from medium-high because I don't want these to blacken. Again, I want them to caramelize. We're getting a nice hiss, but I'm going to turn this down, maybe a medium, closer to the medium side of medium-high. I do not want it to blacken because then you get a lot of burned flavors. Doesn't taste very good. I'm going to run and grab my bottle opener so we can get the beer started, and I'll be right back. Bear with me. Actually, you know what? I'll do this. Let's do sink can. Perfect. I'll take y'all with me. How does that work? We're gonna walk down the hallway into my office. Might pass a dog or two. Oh, look at, there's a doggo. Hello, doggo. And we're gonna grab our opener, which is not, oh, here, just got it. Perfect. Thanks for bearing with me on this. Usually I'm much more prepared with the beer situation. And we'll switch back to our food focus. We'll put that, and we'll just go like so. Perfect. And we've got our church key and our beer. I believe we can do this now. Switching up the camera angles here. Today we're drinking a 2019 Sierra Nevada Celebration. Pretty tasty beer. It has not gone bad. It's actually aged wonderfully, and we're drinking it in this fantastic Alamo Drafthouse Star Wars Rogue One glass, which is very fun. If you're a Star Wars nerd like I am, it is a pleasure to drink out of. Go ahead and just start our pour. There we go. Let that kind of settle, and then we'll take a little bit of a sip. Yeah, I do need to change my cupcake. Believe me, it's going to be a turkey on Thanksgiving, so we will definitely get that swapped out. Thank you for pointing that out. And hey, Kim, good to see you. Yum, yum. Set that over there to recycle later. Just put the beer off to the side so we still have our cutting board surface to work on. And there we go. So while we're waiting on our onions to kind of cook down and caramelize, you'll notice that we got them going, they're steaming, they're getting nice and kind of glistening and translucent. We're going to start chopping up all of the rest of our veggies for this chili. Now the cool thing about this chili is a lot of it is just kind of sitting time. Like it's not very much active time, so not very difficult to make. We'll put our bay leaf over here and we'll get our red bell pepper started. Doesn't take a lot of effort to make, and considering this is a week leading up to Thanksgiving where we're going to be cooking a lot on Thursday, it's nice to be able to kind of set up a meal that you can eat for a couple of days, just kind of back to back, and maybe worry more about kind of prepping things for Thanksgiving and not worrying so much about keeping yourself fed or going to fast food places and getting terrible food leading up to an awesome holiday. So this is a really nice kind of seasonal dish to make. Red bell pepper, we're going to go ahead and just kind of cut right down. We're not going to go all the way through. We're going to go about halfway through. Cut down. And then from here, we're going to cut off the bottom. Just as little as you can get away with. And then what we're going to do is slide our knife in, slice down, and then literally just kind of turn the pepper around as we cut the walls off of the pepper. That'll give you a great amount of pepper to cut and very little waste. That can go in compost if that's what you do where you are. Then we'll take this and cut it into thirds. Then if you want, you can get rid of this kind of pithy membrane here, the white bit, but not necessary. I'm going to start with this bottom. Just cut it like so. Turn it 90 degrees. We'll get a nice little dice out of it. Now, I don't know if you guys have been watching my cook-alongs for a long time, but for anybody who is new, the best way to cut things is quite literally to get them as flat as you can against the cutting board, and then just kind of chop through them. Now, if you don't have very good knife skills, something you should definitely learn. The better you get at your knife skills, the quicker you can cut things down, and the faster you can get food on the table. So, just to kind of give you guys a demo, we've got this nicely cut out so that it's as flat as we can get it against the cutting board. This is the thickness of all of the cuts that we're going to get. It's going to be about a 1/4 inch, third of an inch thick, which is great. What we're going to try and do is cut this into what they call julienne, which is just long strips. So hold your knife right at the edge, right here where the grip is. If you want to, you can put your finger just kind of over the edge and kind of pinch the end. If you're not comfortable with that, hold it like this. Try not to do this kind of a thing. This works if you're doing long cuts like so. It's not super great if you're trying to do these kind of things because the knife kind of wobbles all over the place. But if you can keep some kind of a grip on your knife, and you really want to just kind of hold it with these two fingers, and then the rest of your grip is just kind of, keeping it controlled, giving it a little bit more control. And then how you cut is really just comes down to comfort. For me, for a lot of things, I like to start with the tip, cut down and away from me like so, and then it just makes sure that everything kind of comes off. So tip, down, away, tip, down, away, and then that kind of gets you a lot of, it allows you to go through things very quickly and very easily. You'll notice we have a little set of peppers cut over here. Now, while you're doing that, if you keep the tip of the knife on the cutting board, you can actually just rock it back and forth like so. So it's just two motions, down and forward, and then keep forward, and then you just lift it up, back, down and forward. That's all you're doing. You're like a railroad train tire thing. I guess it's not a tire on a railroad train, but you know what I'm saying. So for that, you can literally just do this, and you can cut right through the pepper, or anything else that you're cutting, really. And then the more comfortable you get with that, the faster you can go. You can kind of break down a piece of pepper really quick. Or, again, anything that you're cutting down. Now, the great thing about holding it like this is it almost makes it kind of an extension of your hand, and you can almost use it to kind of like move things around on the cutting board if you need to. Of course, be careful. Now, with your other hand here, you're going to be holding this like so. You basically want to create a claw, and you want to keep all of your fingers behind your middle finger on the front. So you're going to be using the flat of your knuckle here as a guide for your knife. So your knife should be touching your knuckle, and it's just going to be going up and down, up and down, up and down. So if you hold your fingers here on top of whatever you're cutting, and we do our rocking motion, we just put our knuckle, align it with the edge of whatever we're cutting, move it back just a bit, and then we can literally just put our knife up against it, and we can control how thick we want everything to be cut by moving our hand back slowly. And you'll notice that after I move it back a certain amount, I'll actually pick up my hand and move it back a little bit further. Depending on what you're cutting, you can just kind of slide your fingers back on some things, but don't worry too much, and speed will come. As you get more and more comfortable with that, you'll be able to do it faster and faster and get more comfortable, obviously get more comfortable with it. And we're just going to take our time dicing up this pepper here. I'm going to come over here, and we're going to take a look at our onions, getting a little bit of black, which I was trying to avoid, but that's okay. I'm just going to keep it kind of moving around. I think the temperature is right. I think I just let it sit for a little too long. So if you're cooking along with me, just keep a closer eye on your onions. Give them a little stir every couple of minutes. It's not blackened. They are still kind of brownish, which is good. We're not going to have any overly roasty flavors in our chili. But if you can, better just to kind of keep everything getting nice and brown very slowly. So once you kind of get used to that, you can start doing things like stacking things on top of each other. We're using the exact same method. We've got our knuckle here, and we're just going to come through. In this case, since it's taller, the rocking isn't really going to work because I can't get up and over the edge of that pepper. So I'm just going to lift it, rest it against my knuckle, down, rest against my knuckle, down, against my knuckle, down, and just slowly work it back like so. Only do this if you have two flat objects or two objects that aren't going to rock around on you, because the worst thing is when you're starting to cut something and it's like doing this kind of a thing, not very easy to cut and a lot of possibility to injure yourself. And we'll just do the same thing here. Again, just kind of picking it up and moving it back with my hand, using my knuckle as a guide. And once you really get used to that, you can cut things up without even looking at them, such as the onion that we were doing earlier. I started crying because it was a spicy onion. But was able to keep cutting because I didn't have to keep an eye on it. All right. Onions are looking great. I'm going to turn the temperature down just a bit. Let this caramelize a little bit more. Cool. Now, let's move on to our carrots and celery. I'm going to go ahead and cut up our celery first. Now, for the celery, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut it lengthwise first. And I'm just going to take my time cutting strips. You want to keep this as similarly sized as you can. Again, it doesn't matter if they're super, super small or absolutely perfect, but keeping things uniform just makes them cook evenly. There we go. One celery down. We'll get our second one. I'll actually flip it around this way because that's kind of the flatter side. And on this one here, I've got the same technique with my knife, but since it's a much longer vegetable and one that I'm cutting down into longer strips, you'll notice that I'm not doing the rocking thing. I'm just taking my time and cutting down the length of the celery, still using my knuckles as a guide. Just getting everything cut down. Now I got this one piece over here that got a little bit of a weird angle on at the end. We'll cut that down a little bit on its own. Something like so. That's good enough. And then what we'll do is we'll just come down and cut through it. Again, don't worry too much if you're not going as fast as I am. I do this a lot, and even I am not super fast when it comes to knife skills. There are a lot of people who go a lot faster than I do. But most of all, just be careful. Definitely don't want to hurt yourselves with your knives. Cool. We'll go ahead and switch back over here. Give this a good little stir. Now I believe if Etienne is watching, he's also cooking this along with me. And I think he said that he was going to be making a little bit of a different take on my vegetarian chili. He's actually going to be adding tofu to his and a couple of other things. I think he said he was going to double up the beans, which, great. You'll also want to make sure that you have enough stock to cover the amount of, the extra stuff that you're putting in there. The stock that we're putting in is just enough for what we're building, but if you're going to be doubling everything, make sure that you have enough water to cover, or water or stock to cover it with fluid. Back here, let's go ahead and take care of our carrots. Now, all of these vegetables are very hearty. They're all root vegetables. So that's why we're taking our time kind of cutting these things down, and we're going to put them all in at the same time because they're going to take the same amount of time to kind of soften and cook down. So Go ahead, and what we're going to do with our carrots is we're actually going to find the side that's got a curve in it. So if we look at this carrot, I'll switch back to here. We'll notice that it kind of curves around this direction here. We're actually going to cut a flat end on the curved side of the carrot. As flat as you can get it, but with taking off as little of the carrot as you possibly can. Now we can take this and lay it flat, and now it gives us a nice solid thing to cut that's not going to rock around on us. Get some of this stuff out of the way. Perfect. Now with our carrot, what we're going to do, this is pretty long, I'm actually going to cut it in half. And then on this, I'm going to cut it into long sticks, like so. You'll notice I'm using the exact same technique. I'm going to take one of those curved sides off and then use that as the bottom. So I again have a flat surface, and I have a flat side to kind of start with. And here, we're just going to cut these guys down again. This is our julienne. Nice long strips of carrot. And then from here, rotate that 90 degrees. And then we're just going to cut these into nice little diced. You'll notice that all of these little cubed pieces that we have, all the diced vegetables are all kind of the same size. That's what you're going for. If you want to go for super thick, great. Make giant cuts with your vegetables. Just make sure that your bell pepper, your celery, and your carrots are all about the same amount of chunkiness, if that makes sense. All right, let's go ahead and give this a quick stir. Caramelizing down quite nicely. Smells really nice in here. And a little bit of a lower temperature is great. Everything is caramelizing nicely. Perfect. All right, we're going to do the same thing with our next piece of carrot. Again, I'm just going to come down. Be careful with your knife. You don't want to cut yourself. Take your time. Now, if you need to do the pinch method, like what I'm doing here, I'm basically just pinching on either side of the carrot and then very, very gently sliding my knife in between my fingers, like so. Be very careful when you do that because the knife can go one way or the other, and you don't want to have it deflect into a finger. That is never fun. And then again, we've got our flat side over here. We've got our flat side on the bottom. We've removed one of our little curves. I'm going to go ahead and slice through this to get our julienne. Perfect. Turn it 90 degrees so that they're all sticking this way. And then we'll just cut through. You'll notice that I'm actually not putting these horizontal with the cutting board. And that's because my hand doesn't, like, this is weird. I don't want to cut like this. My arm naturally goes like this. So I'm going to turn the carrots to match the natural direction that my hand is pointing. So I'm not trying to, like, maneuver the knife around to fit my body. I'm maneuvering the, wait, I am maneuvering my knife around to fit my body. I don't want to maneuver my body around to fit where my knife, like where I want my knife to be. If that makes sense. I think I butchered that up. Anyway, we'll go ahead and cut through our carrots this way. You want it to be relaxed and comfortable. You don't want to feel like you're contorting yourself to fit the tools that you're using. Cool. Got one more carrot. Again, here's our curved side on this side. We're going to just kind of cut this as gingerly as we can, get a nice flat side on it. This carrot is not super long, but I'm still going to cut it in half, like so. There's our flat side. Just go through this bad boy like so. Get him nice and stacked on top of himself. We get our flat side on the other end. And we'll cut through that way. And just choppity choppity. So I haven't posted a list of ingredients for Thanksgiving yet, and the main thing that you guys are going to want to get now, or by tomorrow or Tuesday at the very latest, is grab a turkey. I'm going to be cooking a 14-pound bird. So if you get something that's about 14 pounds, you'll be cooking along at the same rate as I am on Thursday. There we go, nice caramelized onions going on here. They look a lot more burned in the camera than they actually do in real life. So pay no attention to the camera. There we go. But get the turkey, go ahead and put it in your fridge. Actually, what I'll do is I'll show you this. We'll go back to my... Go ahead and put them on a little sheet pan. That way any juices that kind of come off of them, if they're defrosting, don't go into your fridge. They get caught in the pan, and then you can pull that out and clean it. But get those out in your fridge and start them defrosting now, because, or tomorrow, if tomorrow's when you get your turkey. Tuesday at the latest. Because it'll take them a little bit of time to kind of defrost, and you want to get ahead of that. I know that, like, in the books and in everything you see, everything that you read, it says, oh, just do it like the day before. It takes a couple days. Today would be ideal if you can run out and grab one. But if not, tomorrow will still be fine. Go ahead and cut up the last of our carrot. Cool, so we got all of our veggies ready. We've got our onions cooked down. They are looking delicious. You could actually add a little bit more onion if you want this to be more onion soupy or onion chili-y. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to grab 4 cloves of garlic. We want these to be some pretty big cloves of garlic because this is going to be a lot of chili. Let's grab this. Go ahead and break this little thing up. 1 good sized clove. That's bad. 2 cloves, 3 cloves. Grab 1 more clove. Going down here on the bottom. There we go. 4 cloves of garlic. These guys here, I'm just going to kind of give them a quick tap with my knife. Not crushing them, but giving them a little bit of love so that the skin comes right off. Sometimes you might need to give them a little bit more love, but this should basically separate the skin from the actual garlic, the root part of it. You can peel them pretty quickly that way. This one broke in half, which is fine. And we're going to go ahead and stir our garlic in and get it started before we put in the rest of our veggies. It'll give it a little bit more aromatic effect before we get everything else in there cooking. Awesome, awesome. Back to this view. Now, I usually crush these myself and just kind of do it on the cutting board. Today I'm going to be using this because it's quicker, and I'll just take the time to clean it later. That's fine. Go ahead and crush our garlic directly in. I'll do the same with these other 2 here. Get them crushed in. And we use our knife and just kind of scrape them off the end of our garlic crusher. Perfect. I'll set this aside for now. Keep that off. Just kind of get that stirred in. Now the one other trick that I'm going to use here, I didn't put on the recipe list or the ingredients list, so I don't expect you to have this, but if you happen to have some tomato paste, putting a little bit in right now will actually help thicken things up later. Not necessary, not required, just kind of a little extra hack. So I'm going to put just like a 1/4 cup of tomato paste in there. About the end of that tube. And what we're doing is we're putting it in there right now, just so we can kind of roast it off on the bottom of the pan. And then it doesn't taste as raw tomatoey. It actually gives it a little bit of a roasty flavor, and the acid from the tomato starts pulling up some of the brown bits from the bottom, the onion that we have in here. Go ahead and stir that in with the rest of our onion. And oh my god, that smells amazing. If it smells that good at this point, right early in the cooking, you know that this is going to be an awesome, awesome dish. Smells great. We're going to go ahead and start putting in the rest of our veggies. Go ahead and scoop them off the cutting board right into the Dutch oven or pot or whatever you're using. And then again, I'm just using 2 hands for most of it. And then once I get to the last little remnants that I can't pick up on my own, go ahead and scrape them up with my knife. You can also use a pastry scraper if you want. No chance of cutting yourself with one of those. There we go. Now we got a bunch of carrots left over. If you want, you can cut these up and put them in. I'm not going to bother with that at the moment. I'm just going to kind of put these off to the side. We want this to kind of cook down just a bit until they get soft. Go ahead and give everything a stir. We're also going to add some seasoning just to make sure everything's got a nice even amount of seasoning. There we are. Get our salt. Since we're layering the salt in, a little bit at a time, the great thing is you won't have to season it a ton at the end. You'll kind of be putting enough seasoning at each point that it should be perfectly seasoned by the time you're done. Or if you have to adjust at the end, it's just going to be by a little bit. There we go. Now I've still got this pot going at about medium heat. Medium, just a little bit kind of on the edge of medium-high, but still medium. So just kind of let it cook down for a bit. So, how's your week been? I've had an awesome week. Next week I'm actually taking the whole week off for vacation, so I can kind of focus on putting together the cook-along special on Thursday. I highly encourage you, if you don't have anybody, or if you know people who aren't able to travel home, or if they're cooking for the first time, like if they usually go home for family, but this time they're having a couple of close friends over because their family lives a little bit further away. That's what this cook-along is for. It's so that you guys can join in. I've done a ton of Thanksgiving dinners, and it always goes a little bit fun, you know, a little bit differently each time. This week, or this year, we're going to be doing a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. Whole turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, Brussels sprouts. May or may not do dressing. I don't do stuffing, but I do dressing. So possibly a little bit of turkey dressing and a pumpkin pie. So all of that will be done on Thursday. I'm expecting to get started around 10 a.m. And hopefully we'll be done, and that's Pacific time for those of you maybe on the East Coast or elsewhere in the world. And hopefully we'll be done around 2 to 3, depending on how long the turkey takes to cook. And then that way that's like 5-ish Eastern time, 5 to 6 Eastern time. So everybody should be able to jump in. Now, if you're on the Pacific side of the country and you're thinking about joining in, the stream is available. You can always go back in time and start it whenever you guys get started if you're going to have a later dinner. Should be pretty laid back, pretty chill. It is going to be a long stream, so keep that in mind. If you just want to jump in and check in on me with one or for 1 or 2 dishes, that also works. But we'll be up, we'll be cooking. If you know anybody who might need a little bit of coaching or just wants to ask questions while we're cooking, have them jump on the stream. I'm happy to cook along with them. Exactly, Etienne. The pastry scrapers, the dough scrapers, they're almost the size of your hand, but they get under an entire pile of vegetables, and you can just use the other one to kind of guide. They're fantastic when you're doing that kind of movement. So we've got all of our veggies over here on the side. This pot smells incredible. Etienne, if you are cooking along and you're doubling everything like you said you would, it might take you a little bit longer for things to kind of cook down. Luckily, the rest of this is actually pretty straightforward and pretty easy. Getting a lot of steam over here on our pot Dutch oven. We're just getting everything kind of cooked down and nice and soft. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a spoon, pull out a little bit, taste it, more for texture than anything because I want it to be softened. But I'm also going to check the seasoning while we're here. pretty good. Getting soft. We'll probably go another couple minutes. And it's just a little bit more salt. There we are. And I'm going to grab my pepper mill and get some pepper in here as well. There we go. That's right, you guys did have a Canadian Thanksgiving back in October. And again, Kim, this is going to be available for watching later, so if you're not able to take that Thursday off, the recording will be up on my YouTube channel. Speaking of which, I've got all 36, well, I guess 35, and this being the 36, cook-along episodes on my channel. So if you wanted to go and subscribe to me on YouTube, that's, I think, the only place that they're all available. Facebook and Twitch do keep the videos on demand, but you're not able to put together playlists. So on YouTube, you can actually find the Cook Along Live playlist and go back and see all of the videos that I've done in the past, including some of the prep videos for like the pizza. We did pizza dough the night before, and I have a video for that, and then actually using it during the Cook Along Live the following day. Give this just another stir. You'll notice that everything in the pot here is getting a nice caramelly brown color, and that's exactly what you want. You're adding flavor, you're concentrating all the sugars in all these veggies by cooking out some of the moisture, some of the water, and you're softening them down. This is going to taste amazing. So what I'm going to do now is actually add all of my spices. This is chili powder, not cayenne pepper. This is actually, it's a powder called chili powder. And I've heard that in certain parts of the world, this actually can get super hot. So you might want to use a little bit less than what the recipe calls for that I posted up on this video. So this is, I think I said 1.5 tablespoons. You may want to start with 1 and move up from there. Cumin, smoked paprika, and dried oregano. So we're just going to go ahead and add those in. I'm just going to sprinkle them in. Like so. And now we're going to get the aroma of like what a chili should kind of smell like. We're going to get this nice and mixed in. And what this is going to do is actually kind of toast the spices as well. So you don't get those raw flavors like the raw cumin, the raw chili powder. You'll get a little bit of a cooked flavor to them, which is what you want. Kind of activates them, if you will. Plus, they're going to start absorbing some of the moisture from the vegetables that are already in here. Here we go. This all scraped off the sides. Perfect. This all looks fantastic. We're going to go ahead and pour in our diced tomatoes. This is a can of diced tomatoes, 28 ounces, 30 ounces, whatever you can find. Go ahead and get that in. Give it a nice little stir. And again, we're going to let it kind of cook for just a second before we start adding anything else. Wonderful. Got a bay leaf we'll go ahead and kind of stick on the side over here. I'm actually going to kind of scooch it underneath just a bit. There we go. And I've got about 2 cups of vegetable broth here. You can use chicken stock or chicken broth or beef broth or whatever, but since this is vegetarian chili tonight, this is what we're using. Nice veggie broth. Again, go ahead and give that a nice little stir through. And then what we're going to do is let this kind of come up to a simmer. Now this is going to simmer. Once it comes up to a simmer, we're going to add the beans in as well. We want this to come back up to temperature before we do that. It's less mass to actually reheat, so it comes up to the temperature quicker. Once we get the beans in here, this is going to simmer for about a half an hour. I'm actually going to move this over to a gas burner, and we're going to move on to a couple of other things that I'm just going to make to use as accompaniments for the chili tonight. Totally up to you guys if you want to make them. We're going to make a quick guacamole and some garlic cheese toast. So totally up to you if you happen to have the ingredients. It wasn't really planned as part of this. I just realized that I had 30 minutes to fill and decided that that's what I was going to do with it. Now, if you want a soupier chili, feel free to add more vegetable stock, or feel free to add more of whatever you're using to kind of water your chili down. And since I'm trying to get this up to temperature, we'll put this up to high now and let it come up real quick. I'll go grab my beans real quick from the sink. I've already rinsed and drained them. And perfect. So we've got 30 ounces, 30-ounce can of black beans. We've rinsed, we've drained them. 15-ounce can of pinto beans, again rinsed and drained. And then I've just kind of let them sit in a strainer for a bit. You don't have to do that. It's just I had time earlier today, so I did it, got it ready, so I don't have to worry about it here. We've got our chili coming up to the boil. Give it a stir, just make sure that that heat is getting throughout our chili. Looks good. Coming back up to the simmer. Perfect. So while I'm waiting on that, go ahead and grab. I've got a nice loaf of sourdough here that we're going to use for our garlic toast. And we'll grab some butter out of the fridge. Unsalted if you have it. I would prefer unsalted, but if you are only using salted, that's great. Just don't add any salt like what I'm going to be doing. Coming up to a simmer. Cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and actually turn on my range, my gas range. We'll on that one. We'll come over here. We're just going to get this prepped because when we move it from that heat, we want it to come over here and continue to simmer. So we're going to have this going at full bore, and once we put our pot on there, we'll adjust it later to get it to whatever temperature we need to maintain our simmer. You don't want it to boil. If it's boiling, it's going too fast. Actually, some of the stuff will break down. The simmer is what you want. It'll be reducing the water content and thickening up the chili, as well as gently marrying all of the flavors together without breaking anything down. Let's go ahead and come back over here. Stir in our beans. Just make sure you get a really good distribution of everything in here. That looks awesome. Go ahead and stick our bay leaf back in. Everything down to kind of a similar level. And we'll move all of that over to our burner in just a second. From the induction to the gas. I'm going to keep an eye on this just for a second to see how it takes to the burner. It might stop boiling, it might actually start boiling harder, and then we're going to adjust our heat based on that. All right, looks like it is just continuing to simmer, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of leave this here for just a second while we go and get started on our garlic toast. And I'll come back and check on it and adjust it as I need to. All right, welcome back to the cutting board. Go ahead and turn this off. And we're going to come back here and grab, I'm just making one piece of toast for me, so I'm just going to use a small pan for this. And I got a nice sourdough loaf here, rustic sourdough, and I need a bread knife. Grab one of those. Perfect. What I'm going to do is basically just cut off about a ½ inch of bread This is going to be our toast. If you wanted to make this an actual garlic bread, you can do the same thing and put it in the oven under a broiler. It's just me eating here tonight, so I'm just making one slice for myself. Put our bread back in the baggie it came in. Set our bread knife over to the side as well. Perfect. So we got our bread out. We're going to start using our butter here. Get a little bit of a bowl. We just want about a tablespoon, maybe a tablespoon and a half of butter. Something like that. You can leave the butter out if you want, or if you remember, and let it kind of come up to temperature. Soften a little bit before you start doing this. I totally forgot to, which is why we're not doing that. It just makes it easier to incorporate the garlic into the butter when it's a little bit softer. Get some of those towels that I used as trivets out of the way. We'll grab a nice hunk of garlic. This is another reason that I decided to use my garlic press today as opposed to just crushing it on my countertop. Since I knew I was going to be doing a couple of cloves of garlic. We're also going to be using more for the guacamole. I figured I'm already going to be doing a bunch. It doesn't matter if I get that messy. It'll save me time in the actual cooking. Give it a nice little love tap there. Get the skin off. And hey, you know what? If you've given it a love tap and the skin's not coming off, go ahead and give it another one. You know? You're just making it easier on yourself. So if you need to go back for another one, go back for another one. All right, garlic skin off. Now this depends on how garlicky you like your toast. If you want a super, super garlicky toast, put in more garlic. If you're not a huge fan of garlic, or you're planning on doing things later in the evening, maybe with a significant other and you don't want garlic breath, go ahead and use less garlic. But for me, just me tonight, go ahead and crush this and right in to the bowl. Now, what I'm also going to do is add a little bit of salt. Remember, I'm using unsalted butter here, so the salt is actually to season our garlic and a little, season our butter, a little bit of pepper as well. I'm going to use a fork and just kind of start scraping these guys down. Butter's still a little bit cold, so what I'm going to do is try and hold it vertical and just kind of shave off bits with the fork. And what that'll do is actually make it easier to handle as well. And then just kind of crush the butter in. And what we're trying to do is just incorporate all of this together. And we'll just switch to that so you guys can see what I'm doing. Instead of watching me watch my butter, you guys can take a look into the bowl. And we're going to go ahead and mash everything together. As it gets kind of stuck to the fork, we'll scrape it down and then just start again. You want everything nicely incorporated. This is a very kind of basic way to make almost an herb butter. Now, if you wanted to make an herb butter, it's literally the same process. You just chop up whatever herbs you want to put in there, so thyme or rosemary or sage or whatever. And you just let the butter come up to temperature, mix it all together. Add garlic as well, and you get a really nice garlicky herb butter that you can use on everything. For example, you could potentially use it on a turkey on Thursday, perhaps. And again, you can do it at the time, you can do it ahead of time. The thing is, the closer to room temperature it is, the more creamy it becomes, the easier it becomes to work with and spread. So make your butter based on how spreadable you want it to be. All right, we got a bunch of butter on our fingers. Let's give it a taste. Yum. That is garlicky and delicious. Cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn our cooktop on. I'm actually going to turn this down to like a medium low to medium heat. I don't want this too hot. What we're going to do, and this is actually a little trick that my stepmom told me about. Oh, and my chili is boiling, so I'm going to turn down the heat and let that come down to a simmer. I heard it out the corner of my ear. We're actually going to brown our butter and our garlic in the pan before we add our toast. So get just a little bit. You don't want the whole scoop. Get like, I don't know, what is that? Maybe a half teaspoon to a teaspoon of butter. Go ahead and put it into your pan and just kind of let it melt and start to brown. You definitely do not want your pan too hot for this. So, err on the side of it being too cold. If you think that it's, started on low and then slowly start working up the heat until it starts browning, melting, but not burning. Garlic and butter burn really quickly, and they will ruin your toast. So keep it brown, keep it melty, don't burn it. Start it lower and work up the heat if you need to. While we're waiting on that, we are going to actually butter one side of our toast. So pick a side. This side has more bread, this side has more holes. So the bread side is what I'm going to put down first. It tends to be, the side that you put down first tends to be the one that gets nice and browned more evenly than the other side. So this is going to be our downside on our pan. So I'm going to butter the upside. And you don't want too much butter, just a nice light little coat here. And you're getting butter and pepper and garlic spread out over the surface of the bread. And again, we're just kind of keeping this nice and light, a nice little thin layer. There we go. Awesome. Our butter is melted over here. I'm going to go ahead and spread it out. Just make sure that we get nice coverage on the pan. It's actually a little bit too dry. I'm going to add a little bit more butter. Just kind of get a nice little coating on the bottom here. Now, I'm going to make garlic cheese bread. So I've got some Monterey Jack in the fridge that I've had for a bit. You can use cheddar, you can use any kind of cheese that you want on this. Parmesan works great as well. I'm going to go ahead and grate up a little bit of that. And then we're just going to kind of let this butter brown while we're waiting. You definitely want it to be sizzling. You definitely want it to be kind of burning away the moisture in there so that it can start browning. But you don't want it to be popping at you. If it's popping, it's too hot. Turn it down. Got a little bit of garlic on our knife. We'll just kind of wipe that off real quick. And then I don't need too much cheese. Maybe about an inch from this block. And we'll toss this back in the fridge. Check our chili. That's a nice little simmer. We'll keep it there. Perfect. And the garlic is just starting to brown. So what I'm going to do is basically just wait until the garlic has just a little bit of color. The butter has just a little bit of color. I don't know if you guys can see it in there, but it's starting to kind of get nice and golden. I'm going to go ahead and put the bottom side, the dry side of our toast down. And just kind of make sure that we get nice coverage with the butter on the bottom of this. And just leave it there to toast for a bit. Grab our cheese grater. Now, the cool thing about a cheese grater is you can tell how long your cheese strands are going to be. If I grate this way, like this, they're going to be nice short little pieces of cheese as they get grated off. If I go this way, they're going to be nice and long threads of cheese. So that's what I'm going to do. I want nice long threads of cheese. So we'll just go ahead and grate in that way. Now, if you can, use your thumb on the top and use your hand to press it up against the grater, and you'll notice that I'm tilting my hand away, pulling up, and then tilting it back towards and pushing down. That's a great way to kind of not slice your hand up while you're grating cheese, and you get a little bit of extra. Tear off a bit for your doggo. Hello, come here, doggo. And you eat the rest. Good boy. Go ahead and get as much cheese off of your grater as you can. Usually you gotta kind of reach up inside there, kind of scrape off the little bits. And then get everything off the cutting board. So looking over here, you can see the garlic is nice and browned, not burning yet. That is kind of a reflection of what the bottom of the toast is going to look like. So if you're getting black bits of garlic in your pan, it means the garlic on the bottom of the toast is also burning. Since everything here is a nice golden brown color, we're good. We have the temperature of the pan here at a medium low to medium heat, and that seems to be perfect where we've gotten it, so we're just going to leave it there. All right, go ahead and kind of clean off our cutting board here. And we're going to start with our quick guacamole. This toast is going to take a little bit of time to kind of get golden brown since we're doing it at a low heat. So while we're waiting on that, we'll get started with the next bit. So I was able to find a couple of soft avocados earlier today, so hopefully this will be a pretty good guacamole. And I know that they're kind of seasonal, and I know that they are not necessarily available everywhere at this time of the year. So if you can't find them, I'm sorry. If you can, go ahead. And otherwise, you could just grab a pre-made guacamole. They're usually pretty okay. Obviously, homemade is always better, but sometimes you just can't get homemade. I'm just going to use 2 avocados tonight. These are pretty large avocados. We'll just cut them in half like so, then twist them to pop them in half. Slice into the seed, and then that's how you get rid of the seed. I'm going to use a butter knife, the knife that we actually used to spread our butter on our toast. I'm just going to cut through like so. This way I'm not going to cut my fingers. And then also this way. I'm going to do this with all of my avocado halves. While I'm doing this, I'm going to check on my toast to make sure that my garlic in that pan is not getting burned. Everything looks okay over there. And what this is going to do is basically make it easier to scoop the avocado out of the skin and make it easier for you to mash it. Hey, sometimes they try and escape. If they do, gotta make sure you grab them before they hit the floor. I'm gonna take a quick peek at the bottom of our toast. Looks good. Not quite browned enough yet. I'll let that go, and let me grab a bowl. Now, the last time we made guacamole was on the first Cook Along Live, which was Taco Tuesday. I love making tacos, I love making guacamole. And so this is a very similar recipe. It's just going to be a little bit less, a little bit easier. Get our avocados scooped out into a bowl. This will be one of the garnishes on our chili. There we go. And last but not least, this last one, scooped out. Go ahead and add a generous amount of salt right here. This will actually help you kind of mash down the avocados. I'm going to say I probably just added about a tablespoon of salt. Now, avocados love salt. They love seasoning. And very often, if you don't put enough salt in there, you'll know and you'll have to add more. So I usually go a little bit heavy up front. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually put in a clove of garlic. So this is a very garlic-heavy meal tonight. Let's do this. I don't need a giant clove for the guacamole. And again, since we've already got our garlic press out, we'll go ahead and just keep using them. Actually go a little bit light on the garlic and the guacamole tonight, since we have garlic and everything else. What else do I want to put in here? That's it for now. We got all of that in. I might put in a little bit of cumin, just like a tablespoon or a half a teaspoon. Not a tablespoon. A tablespoon or a half a tablespoon or a quarter tablespoon. Start very light and build up from there. And then, let's see if I can find my potato masher. Oh my gosh, where are my things? Here's the potato masher. All right. We're going to go ahead and give this a nice little mash. Now the reason I added the salt and the reason that I added the garlic and the reason that I added the cumin is because crushing those is not going to hurt them. It's not going to bruise them. It's not going to ruin the guacamole. But you only want to do that with things that the masher is not going to, you know, macerate, basically. You can put your tomatoes in if you want, but it's going to pulverize them. So just kind of think about what are you incorporating, and is it going to be something that you want to be totally mashed up or not. I'm also going to put in the juice of a lemon. The reason I use a lemon instead of a lime in my guacamole is because the lemon actually prevents it from browning a little bit. Limes, for some reason, don't do it as well. Go ahead and kind of give it a pre-crush, and then cut about 1/3 of the way down your lemon. You might see a couple of seeds in this lemon, like I've got just a few little seeds in here, but they're super easy just to kind of scrape out. And then I can squeeze that 1/3 of the lemon directly in without having to use a juicer, without having to use any kind of a tool to get the juice out. Same thing on the other side. Rotate it, cut about 1/3 of the way down. And again, you may have some seeds. This one actually doesn't have any. And then just squeeze it right in. Perfect. Now we've got 2 flat edges on our lemon, so we're just going to put it down. And now you can actually see where your seeds are and kind of gauge on where you want to cut. Usually about 1/3 of the way works great. And then on the middle one, we can scrape the seeds out and juice that in last. Go ahead and do this. This side, no seeds, we'll just juice it right in. This one here has a bunch of seeds, but they're all right here on the surface. So I can just kind of scrape, and all of the seeds will come out. Minimal juice loss. And no seeds, scrape right in, squeeze right in. And then the center one, there's a lot of little seed pieces kind of in the middle. I'm just going to be very ginger as I kind of twist it to juice it. And these seeds that kind of start popping up to the surface, I'll remove as we're going. But there we go. Lemon is juiced. And again, I'm putting the juice in now because it just kind of helps the process along of getting everything nice and crushed together. Check on our toast. Probably burned it. Nope. Looking good. Now I think the problem here is my pan is a little bit too small for this piece of bread. Let's do that. We'll put our butter side down now. See if we can get a nice even coat on the back side. Never hurts to taste what you're cooking. All right, there we go. Nice creamy guacamole. Set that aside for now. Take a little bit of a taste. That is good. Could probably use a little bit more salt, but I'm going to put in the rest of what I'm putting in before I get to that. Set that over there for now. All right. Got a jalapeno. We're going to cut it very similarly to our red bell pepper. We're going to just kind of come straight down like this. I am actually going to cut it in half and then cut right up along the stem. Now with a jalapeno, sometimes, if they're big enough, you can just kind of flatten them like so and remove all the seeds. This will give you a nice little jalapeno flavor without adding too much spice, usually. Remove that pith, remove the seeds. And then again, we were left with 2 nice flat pieces of jalapeno here that we can just slice into a julienne. And then turn it 90 degrees. and get a nice dice out of. And peppers go really, really well with chili. This is why we're adding a jalapeno to this. Usually I don't add peppers to my guacamole because my salsa takes care of it, but we're not doing salsa tonight. And I want a little bit of that flavor. Go ahead and do this, and right into the bowl. I'm not going to worry about mixing it yet. We'll get to that. There we go. And next step, we'll go to our shallot. Now, shallots are kind of an interesting oniony thing. What we're going to do is just kind of top it. Just take off as little of the tip as you can. You can see all of the little rings of the shallot in there. You can see all the little bits. And let's switch over to here. You can kind of see what the inside of the shallot looks like. Sometimes there's like 2 shallots in here, and they're kind of bunched up together, and then you can separate them, and it's pretty easy. In this case, we can see that it's just the one. Now, if you see the skin here, underneath the skin, very similar to an onion, there is like an oniony little bit down there. The easiest way to get the skin off of a shallot is quite literally to then cut it in half vertically, grab the first layer of shallot and just peel it back, and that'll pull the skin and that outer layer of shallot off. And usually that layer of shallot, you'll notice here at the very end of it, it looks great over on this side, but as we get kind of on the other side, it's starting to dry out, so it's turning into the next layer of skin, so you're just removing that. And you've got a nice clean piece of shallot. Same thing on this side. We can see here is the outer layer of skin right there, and it's actually starting to kind of dry out on this side. So we'll just kind of peel it back and remove it, and we'll get that whole bit of shallot paper skin off, and you're left with just a nice fresh inside of the shallot. Now for a shallot, we're going to do very similar to what we did with an onion. We're going to either use 1 finger or 2 fingers or 3 fingers to kind of hold it in place as we cut parallel, maybe once or twice. Don't cut all the way through, just like 90% of the way. And then what we're going to do is, if you have a flat side, put that side away from you, and then use it as a guide to slice vertically through the shallot. And what this does is it cuts through all of those little rings in the shallot. And then when we turn it 90 degrees and we start dicing it, it actually comes in with a really, really nice fine dice. So that's what you want to do with your shallot. Again, the more comfortable you get with your knife, the quicker you can kind of work your way through it. You might get some bigger bits like so. You can always come back and just cut them up a little smaller if you wanted to. In something like a guacamole, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. It really comes down to your personal taste as to whether you want those bits in. And then this is the only waste that we have. It's just this little piece of root. So you can get a lot of mileage out of a shallot or an onion as long as you know how to cut them properly. The same thing, just a couple of fingers right up at the top. Cut back about 90% of the way. Awesome. Now we'll do some vertical cuts. In this case, the flat side's on this side. So I'm actually going to use it like so. Kind of pinch around my knife and just be very careful with it. And now I can just do our usual claw technique. There we go. And once again, just left with a little itty bitty bit of waste for the shallot, just the root bit. And then this can go directly into our guacamole. Now the last thing that we're going to put in our guacamole is going to be a couple of cherry tomatoes. Not very many. Let's switch back to our toast and see what our other side looks like. We'll just flip it around real quick. Getting there, nice yellow color. Go ahead and do this. Now I actually want to kind of weigh it down a bit, so I'm just going to take my garlic top and press on it. And what that's going to do is just make sure that it's flat against the pan. Should help it kind of brown a little bit more evenly. You can use a plate if you're using a bigger pan. I don't have a plate that's small enough to fit in this one, so I'm just going to do that. Tomatoes. So let's grab a couple of our cherry tomatoes. Got them in this little carrier here. I don't want too many. We're not doing a lot of guacamole, so we don't want a lot of tomatoes. Be good. That one's not one that we're going to use. We'll replace him with that. So pro tip, if you're cutting a lot of small things like this, let's say you're making jam and you're using persimmons or anything like that, it's really nice to focus on one type of cut at a time. So don't go one by one and cut your tomato in half and then cut it into a quarter and then cut it into a quarter and then spin it and then start cutting it, because you're actually kind of switching between a lot of different thought processes when you're doing that. First you're making the long cuts, then you're turning it, then you're making the short cuts. If you focus on just quartering your tomatoes or just removing the stem from a persimmon, for example, you can come back and do the rest of the cutting in stages. So all I want to do is cut, cut. We're just quartering everything. It's just going to go over there. Same thing with this. Cut, 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 over. Cut, 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 over. You can kind of breeze through all of this part of it just by cut, 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 over. Cut, 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 over. Now, the benefit to this is when I start cutting these lengthwise, I can grab 6 or 7 at a time and really just kind of breeze through all of these horizontal cuts. So here's 2 tomatoes worth that I can just kind of go very quickly through. And now I'm cutting my time effectively in half by grabbing more at a time. So and I know you guys just saw me fumbling around with a little bit of tomato and going, ha ha. Well, guess what? You're still going to be fumbling around with little bits of tomato if you're doing them one at a time. So if you're doing them 2 at a time, 3 at a time, 4 at a time, it still goes faster. Nice try. We'll just get the last of these guys cut up. In this case, it's going to get mixed in with the guacamole, so I'm not super worried about it being perfect. But I do like cherry tomatoes for guacamole because they're a little bit sweeter than some of the store-bought ones, especially this time of the year. Go ahead and get those in, like so. And we'll just give this a nice little mix through. You'll see all of the tomatoes are identifiable. The chilies kind of blend in with the green, but when you see them, they're very easily identifiable. And the bits of shallot are very easily identifiable as well. Last bit for this, I think we're going to grab a little bit of cilantro. Yum, yum, yum. A little bit more salt. Don't be shy with the salt when you're making a guacamole. Avocados go really, really well with salt. Plus adding that lemon gives it the tartness. The salt kind of cuts that. There you go. Perfect. All right. Grab some cilantro. Set that over on the side again. Dry off our cutting board, all the tomato goober. And we'll check on our toast. That looks good. So now that we're flipping it back over to the other side, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our cheese and just kind of pile it on. What's going to end up happening is the cheese is going to start melting, getting nice and soft, just kind of becoming part of the bread. There we are. Over here for our cilantro, just grab a little bit of it. Bunch it up as best you can, kind of roll it into a little cylinder if you can. And then we're just going to make one cut through it using the knife skills that we've been working on. And there we go. Now if you really want, you can come through again. Put the curve of your knuckles here on the top of the knife, like so. Hold the tip down on the cutting board like this, and you're just rocking it up and down with your other hand. And then you can just kind of rock it across, and you get a nice fine dice through your herbs. You really don't want to cut down herbs more than like one way and then another way. You'll start bruising them. Go ahead and put that directly into our guacamole. Switch back over this way. Give it a nice little stir. And that looks amazing. Tastes as good as it looks. Right. I believe our chili is either done or most of the way done. Looks great. It is reduced down a little bit. Still nice and chili-y. All the beans and everything are nice and cooked through. All the flavors have had plenty of time to kind of come together and meld. So what we're going to do is kind of find the bay leaf here and pull it out. Put him right into the sink. And then I'm going to turn off the burner. And bring you guys over here to take a look at what it looks like. That chili is ready to go. Now, if you want a chili that is less watery, you want something a little bit thicker, you want something that has a little bit more texture, you absolutely can use an immersion blender, blend it just a couple of times right in the center. It will break down all the beans, break down all the veggies that are in there, and kind of thicken up the broth, thicken up the soup. You can also reduce it and let it cook for a little bit longer. That'll also make it a little bit thicker, but it won't improve the texture. The texture will still be the same as what it is right now. I like it the way that it is. Soupy with all the stuff inside. That's a great chili for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up a little bit of cilantro. We turn the heat off. We're just going to stir it in because we don't want to brown the cilantro. If it's in too much heat too long, it'll actually go brown, which will change the flavor and make it a little bit less good. So we're just going to do the same thing we did with our guacamole. Cut up a bit of cilantro, about 2 tablespoons, because we got a ton of chili, and we're just going to add it with the heat off and just stir it in. So that's what we're going to do. Back here, we'll grab our cilantro again. And same thing, just grab maybe a little bit more than we had for our guacamole. This is just kind of a enhancer at the end. So if you don't like cilantro, don't use it. You can use parsley. You can use really anything that's green. Chives. Chives would probably work really good as well. I don't have a problem with cilantro, so I really, really like it actually. And that's why I'm using it. It doesn't have the same effect in salsa or guacamole. Parsley and things, you could use them if you want. I would rather just leave it out if you don't like cilantro on those. There we go. Same thing. We're going to go ahead and not that one. There we go. Go ahead and just kind of give this one cut this way. And put my finger on it, turn it this way. Give it one more cut across. nice little dice. Now, you also might be watching me like slide my finger along the knife. Every time I'm doing this, if I'm doing it from this side, my finger is never over the blade. It's always behind the blade and pushing away from me. That makes sense. I'm pushing with the blade. If I'm doing it this way, again, flat, and then I'm always pushing away from the blade. So you're not sliding along the blade, you're actually sliding away from the blade. So usually that works pretty well. Just be very careful when you're doing that, because you're right up next to a blade. Cool, so we got our cilantro here. We're gonna slide it over to the side. We'll bring our pot over where all the cameras are, and we will stir it in over here. And that is hot, so let me grab my trivets, and there we go. Yum, yum, yum. What a delicious looking chili. Nice and hot. Move our lid. Scoop up our cilantro. Again, sliding this away from the blade. We're going to go ahead and stir this in. And what you might notice is as this cooks just gently in this hot chili, the color might intensify. The cilantro is going to kind of turn a bright green. That's great. That means that all the oils inside are heated up, the flavor is kind of melding with the rest of the chili, and that's what you want. Now, if we kept cooking this, eventually that color will start kind of souring and turning a darker brown green, which at that point you've kind of overcooked the herb, the cilantro in this case, and not ideal. Cool, cool. Good on that. Let's take a quick look at the bottom of our toast. It is browning nicely. I'm going to turn this up just a bit, see if we can get our cheese to melt a little quicker. And we'll start getting this plated up. Move some things away on the side here, like this. That over there. And we'll grab a bowl. All right. Also grab a ladle. Switch back over to here. So it's really simple. You can get any kind of bowl you want. We're going to go ahead and just fill up the bowl and then put a little bit of some dressings on here. So let's scoop up a little bit of our chili. Move our bowl a little bit closer. Get that in there. There we go. Give the bowl a little bit of a shake. It'll kind of level things out. Now we're going to put in a scoop of guacamole up on the side, like so. We're also going to use, I have a little bit of cream cheese that I want to use. I'm sorry, sour cream, not cream cheese. We're just going to put a dollop of this on as well. If you have some limes and you want to kind of dress it up with that as well, you're welcome to. Don't need too much cream cheese, just a bit. We'll just put it right up next to the guacamole. Like that. And our toast, our cheese, is not very melty. So what we're going to do, just flip it around. Let the pan kind of melt our cheese for us. Give it just a second. This is an old trick called getting lazy and not wanting to wait for your cheese to melt. The tried and true technique works every time. All right. Give that a second. What'll happen is we'll get a little bit of a crouton made out of the cheese as it melts and then sears. Awesome, Cindy. Yeah, I'm glad that you guys made the cornbread. Mmm, crushed tomatoes. Yeah, that's a great one. Now, the thing with crushed tomatoes is you might still need to add a little bit of stock. It's going to, well, the crushed tomatoes are going to have quite a bit of juice. So that is a good question. Let me know how it turns out. It's definitely going to be a lot thicker than mine. And you're not going to have as much fluid to work with. So when you're simmering it and it's kind of reducing, it's going to reduce really quick. So just keep an eye on it. So we've got our cheese kind of melting out around the sides. This is great. I'm just going to give it another little second to kind of solidify. Then we'll flip it and we will be done. What I'll do this time is I believe we can do this sort of a thing now. And I can say, hey, look at our chili. And it auto-focuses and auto-adjusts. Awesome. That's a great way to do it. Perfect. So we finally figured that out. See how our cheese is doing over here. Good enough for me. A little bit overly melty, but that works. I'll grab the other little dry bits, crusty crouton bits. The great thing about this is none of the garlic burned. It's all still golden brown, and that comes from doing it at such a low temperature. And then, there we go. We've got our vegetarian chili with some awesome cheesy garlic bread and guacamole and sour cream. Done. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please enjoy your chili if that's what you made tonight. If not, well, make it whenever you can. This is a great recipe. Doesn't take too long, or it's not too difficult, I should say. Especially the chili bit. Like, we were done with that in about 20 minutes. And then the rest was just putting together the guacamole, the bread, and then just kind of filling time while we waited for the chili to kind of reduce and cook down. So this is a great recipe pre-Thanksgiving. It's a great thing to just kind of put together. Gives you a ton of meals over the week. I'm probably going to be eating this through Wednesday, just because it's very hearty, very filling. Anyway, everybody, I hope you guys have a great week. Thursday night, or Thursday morning, I should say, 10 a.m. Pacific time, we will be cooking along. It'll be a Thanksgiving special. And this weekend on Sunday, we will not be cooking since we're doing our Thursday Thanksgiving special. So, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you want more content like this, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Hey, Warhammer, nice to see you. It's all right that you're a little bit late. That's why we have the recordings. If you know anybody who is not able to go home for Thanksgiving, if you know anybody who is cooking Thanksgiving for the first time maybe because they aren't able to go home, or somebody who is not a really good cook, or somebody who's not super confident in the kitchen and they want to have a traditional Thanksgiving meal, by all means, send them over here to my YouTube channel, send them over to my Facebook streaming page if you want, or Twitch. And also follow me on Instagram so that you can get all of the ingredients for our Thursday Cook-Along Thanksgiving special. First and foremost, if you are cooking along with me, grab a turkey, probably tomorrow, and let it defrost. Put it right in your fridge. Don't put it in the freezer. It needs a couple of days to come down to temperature and actually be ready to cook. We are going to start from a pre-bagged turkey all the way through to a full Thanksgiving dinner. So it's going to be a long stream. However, if you know somebody, or if you are one of the people who can't get home, wants someplace to come and have somebody to chat with, ask questions of, and cook along live with, that's what the Thanksgiving special is put together for. So hope to see you on Thursday. Have a great rest of your week, and have a happy, safe, and fun Thanksgiving. We will see you in 2 weeks after Thursday for the next Cook Along Live. Have a great night, everybody. Bye.